In the seminar, got a surprise when the finale was that Leonie Drummond decided that she wanted to get up and say something. That was so wonderful. And here we continue the wonderful surprise. 91-year-old grandson who lived with his grandfather, William Cooper, for about 8 years. Alfred Turner, Uncle Boydie.
I'm glad I came down. It's a hell of a show. And I was glad I came down because a lot of my people are here, my relatives. They come from Sydney and drove all night last night. And I'm pleased to see them, but I'm pleased to see all of you too, because I'm glad you came and you made it this night. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the William Cooper legacy. Thank you to David Jack.
I was born on the banks of the Burn. Your Leon is mine, I will stand.
Uncle William Cooper, born in 1860, was already in his 70s as he fought the injustices Indigenous people were facing. He came across persecution others were facing. He fought that as well. At the same time, on the other side of the world, persecution of Jewish people was happening like it's not been seen before. On November the 9th, 1938, synagogues and other Jewish institutions were burnt to the ground on a night that became known as Kristallnacht.
William Cooper was decades ahead of his time. Perhaps, given his remarkable leadership in other areas, we should not be so surprised that he reacted so swiftly and compassionately when information concerning the horrors of Kristallnacht reached Australia. The protest undertaken by the Australian Aborigines League against the cruel persecution of the Jewish people by the Nazi government of Germany stands out. Perhaps also, we can understand today that the ready concern demonstrated by the Australian Aborigines League drew powerfully on their own experience. That experience being one of the people who were themselves dispossessed in their own homeland, denied citizenship and other basic rights. As an Australian representative, I feel deeply humbled that it fell to one of our own dispossessed non-citizens to stand up for what was right against the horrors of Nazi persecution.
2008 will be remembered as the era of two worlds. Sorry and thank you.
Well, thanks everybody for coming along and support us today. It's been a great walk this morning. We've stopped up at the William Cooper Justice Centre, which was officially opened on the 6th of October. I'm sure some of you know, but probably not all, but the new court precinct up here in the corner of William and Lonsdale, the 6th of October this year was named the William Cooper Justice Centre. You know, that's an amazing feat for a man who fought all his life seeking justice, all his life.
I'm Tracy Alexander, I met them on their visit to Israel.
Retracing his footsteps, Aboriginal elder, 89-year-old Alfred Turner, is a long way from home. Once again in Israel, this time with his son, to visit this plaque where his grandfather's name, William Cooper, has been enshrined.
It means a lot to be here today, and everyone has come here, especially to see William Cooper
you reflect on how one brave Aboriginal man stood up 3/4 of a century ago because he saw injustice, he then spoke out against injustice, and urged others to do the same. For the future, let us all resolve again tonight to keep alive the spirit of William Cooper.
Indeed, the march that William Cooper organised and the presentation of that petition that was reenacted today was the first public demonstration against the Nazi regime and the treatment of Jews in the world.
Protest wholeheartedly at the cruel persecutions of the Jewish people by the Nazi government in Germany. The building that Grandfather wanted a letter to reach to Hitler at that time.
I am pleased to have the honour to recognise formally on behalf of the government of the Federal Republic of Germany both the protest note and your grandfather's commitment. As Federal Foreign Office Special Representative for relations with Jewish organizations, I am also pleased to have this opportunity to express, on behalf of the federal government and the people of Germany, my profound respect and sincere gratitude to you, your grandfather, and the Australian Aborigines League. We thank you for standing up for the Jews in Germany during the Nazi regime and for keeping alive the memory of this courageous act of solidarity against the Nazis.
I was born on the banks of the Murray. Your is mother's driver's hand.
He developed letters to prime ministers and to politicians of all stripes. He was a trade unionist and wrote to the unions. He wrote to the churches. And in fact, when he wasn't getting results, he managed to garner 1,814 names onto a petition which was forwarded, he believed, to the monarch of Australia, King George V. And in that document he wrote, "Your petitioners therefore humbly pray that your Majesty will intervene on our behalf and through the instrument of your Majesty's government in the Commonwealth of Australia to prevent the extinction of the Aboriginal race and better conditions for all, and grant us power to impose a Member of Parliament in the person of our own blood." Unfortunately, Joe Lyons, Prime Minister, let down William Cooper and never forwarded the document from his Parliament to the Buckingham Palace. So incensed was Uncle William that he joined together with William Ferguson and Jack Patton in Sydney on the sesquicentenary, the 150th anniversary of white colonisation. And instead of celebrating, they organised a day of mourning in Australia Hall. Some 79 years later, Uncle Boydie himself was able to enter that very hall.
Always writing letters. He wrote letters to kings and prime ministers and politicians, whoever he thought might help him get some help for his people.
Uncle Boydie was on the road again, this time to Sydney, to meet Prince William at Admiralty House. The Australian Parliament interceded, and the aid of then Prime Minister Tony Abbott prevented the document on the grounds of protocol to be handed to Prince William. So close.
Petition the grandfather had in 1937 to send to the King of England, and also a letter that he wrote to the King about the treatment of Aboriginal people in Australia. Well, I'm just taking this up to Canberra to present it to the Governor General.
Thank you very much indeed for dropping in the studio. I've been looking forward to this moment.
In August of 2014, Peter Cosgrove found himself at Balmoral Castle, where he became knighted Sir Peter, and in that meeting he had a very special delivery from the hands of Uncle Boydie. Back in 1917, his son Daniel Cooper had enlisted in the Allied Infantry Forces and sadly was killed in action in Belgium. The following year, in fact, the image of Dan Cooper was immortalised on the walls of the Shepparton City Council. In fact, the mural of Uncle Dan complements a beautiful mural of Uncle William Cooper himself, also in the city of Shepparton. And the third piece of art has been the unveiling of a statue of Uncle William Cooper in the centre of Queen's Park.
I met Uncle Boydie here in Israel last year, and it was a great privilege. Uncle Boydie was here with his family to tell the story about his grandfather, William Cooper. So Uncle Boydie, happy birthday.
William Cooper had the vision of a greater picture, and he understood the need for all people to look after one another and not just to be focused on themselves. He understood that when you look out, you see people, you see humankind. You don't see a black person, a white person, a Jewish person, a Muslim person. You just see people, and we are all responsible for one another.
What can we do to preserve the legacy of the one man who stood tall, not allowing the silence of the world to overwhelm him?
Someday I will be Richmond, like the legend of my tribe.
And now you can see why it was so important that Uncle Boydie, having been so involved in telling the story, that he honoured us with his own words. Let's hear it again for 91-year-old Uncle Boydie. As we were preparing tonight's function, there were a number of family members, as Uncle Boydie mentioned, who came in from interstate and from various places. We have had people come from all over the country. From Perth, we've got Lance, and of course Eli Rabinowitz, who spoke in the seminar. From Cairns, we've had Barbara and Norman Miller. From Sydney, we've had Barbara, Michael and Jesse coming driving down overnight from Sydney, and in fact that was Jesse leading the walk last year. And in addition, we also had a gentleman called Christopher O'Brien who flew down today. He's only here for one day because tomorrow, after a day of work just next door at the NCG, he has to be back in Sydney by 6 or 7 because the Sydney Jewish community is doing exactly this, a big hall on Friday night dinner, they call it Shabbat dinner in Hebrew, of about 50 Jews and 50 members of the Aboriginal community, which is going to be representing Uncle Boydie by Christopher's grandma, Auntie Di O'Brien, and Christopher has come down for one night to be the link. Christopher has a little message from his nan.
So I don't have the message, but I've been speaking with Nan quite frequently on the phone. For those who don't know, Diane O'Brien, who is my grandmother, is William Cooper's great-granddaughter. And unlike myself, Nan did not know her culture or her heritage as an Aboriginal woman. And so she had to do the hard yards through Linda, Queensland at the time, before New South Wales was established. And so I was lucky enough to know through my grandmother that I was an Aboriginal boy. So we moved to Kamaganja because I am a Boydie man, first from Kamaganja. So I pay my homage. So Gapa Goka Anganga Jakalovich Pa Yakamaja Kamaganja Boydie. I'm a Yorta man from Kamaganja, and my Kamba area is the long neck turtle of the Murray River of New South Wales and Victoria. For those who don't know, grandfather William, is my third great-grandfather. I'll say grandfather William because there's a lot of, great-grandfather. His last resting site was left untouched in a very sad state. And it was my grandmother, Diane O'Brien, who identified and marked his grave. And you probably saw from my cousin Michael, he has some images there as well. And it was quite sad to see that because we talk about the legacy of our great-grandfather. And to see that, unfortunately, our own mob back in Kamaganja, or what I call Kamalanga, because that's what my great-grandmother just told me, that's the correct pronunciation for it. It was quite sad to see that it had just been left untouched. You know, a great man who started so much for us. If it wasn't for him, we would not have the opportunity for Nadol. He is Father Nadol. He is the Black Moses. He is the activist and the advocate for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander and Jewish communities. There's so much that grandfather has done in terms of standing up against the persecution of the Jewish community in Austria and Germany through the Crystal Nut in 1938, petitioned the King in 1937, as I mentioned, the National Aboriginal and Islanders Observation Committee, which people get a little bit confused because they think that NAIDOC stands for of celebration, National Aboriginal Islanders Day of Celebration, but it's not. It's an observance committee. It was an observance committee that was observing the injustices and the inequalities that were happening between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people in Australia. The Aboriginal Advancement League, or the Aborigines Advancement League, as it's correctly the terminology of it, then progressed to Uncle in New South Wales, who started the Aboriginal Progressive League. And then we had Uncle Uncle Bruce Guinness, who started the Aboriginal Committee, which is now known as the Aboriginal Health and Medical Research Council. And Auntie Sandra Bay, who was the CEO there for 10 years, has now just resigned from there. So, if it wasn't for Grandfather William, we wouldn't have what we have today. You know, so there's a number of positions and appointments that I hold. So I'm the president of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Health Practice Council. I'm the national leader for the quality assurance for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander medical services. I'm the leader for New South Wales for the PALMS program and ACT. I also sit on clinical governance for the Primary Health Network because it's quite interesting how a lot of Aboriginal funding is being directed to the Primary Health Network and not into our Aboriginal medical services. My grandmother, Diane O'Brien, started the Cumbergunja Aboriginal Medical Service under Divine Orthopedic. So, again, it's really interesting how there hasn't been, like, there is some change, but there hasn't been a significant change to change things. I was talking to a cousin earlier about the Uluru Statement from the Heart. There was 400 recommendations, over 400 recommendations, and the government's willing to take on 25. And then we'll see that cull down from there as well. So it's interesting how things can't change, but things can change. The lovely Barbara Miller, are you still in the room? She's gone. Who wrote Grandfather? Oh, there you are, darling. How are you? Who wrote all the lovely books and literacy around Grandfather. Amazing. But I don't know if you guys know that when Barbara was around about 21, she was actually locked up. She was incarcerated unlawfully by the Australian government. There was no policy, there was no legislation for what they did, but they locked her up. And then all of a sudden, overnight, the press went mad to change legislation to cover their butt for what they had done to Barbara Miller. If that is the case, why are we struggling to have recognition in the Constitution, to have change of legislation against the protection of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people? We're struggling for having a voice at the federal level, and we're struggling for a treaty. You know, the government goes, oh, hang on, we might need to call a referendum to have a treaty, or have a voice at the federal level, at the political level. But it's like, no, you can change legislation that's already been demonstrated, so why can't you change legislation? So again, Grandfather did this in the 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s, unfortunately lost him. We are in 2019 looking at 2020 next year, and we are still struggling to make change. As I mentioned, I'm the president of the Aboriginal Health Practice Council. We sit on the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Health Strategy Group, which is what I'm having at the MCG tomorrow. Because we are looking at how can we embed cultural safety in terms of its awareness, its sensitivity, its appropriateness, and its responsiveness in action. Because cultural safety is not about being competent or being capable, it's about responding to that. It's about demonstrating action to response. That's cultural safety. And so that's what we're trying to do from the national level of all the health industries right across Australia and through the health systems themselves, in creating a reconciliation action plan, having a symposium to recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health practitioners, because Aboriginal health practitioners are still not recognised. Unfortunately, the registered nurses still blocking Aboriginal health practitioners from being recognised as a genuine qualification. What more do we have to do? We do everything, but we don't do a university degree for 4 years to become a registered nurse. We don't do a BA in nursing. I don't aspire to be a nurse, but I do have the highest respect for being an Aboriginal health practitioner, which I have been since inception in 2015. So there is a long way to go, and we keep Grandfather's legacy alive. I'm a Deputy Manager for the Aboriginal College Education Unit. We train GPs of New South Wales and ACT, and I educate because it's mandatory for them to meet through the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners and the Australian College of Rural and Remote Medicine for them to learn Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health. If they want to be good polished GPs in Australia, they need to learn Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health. We have a national health priority. We have the prevalence of every chronic condition out there, and they need to know Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health. So that's what we do as cultural educators, we educate them, but I always take recognition and homage to grandfather, because without him we wouldn't have what we have today.
As we prepare to close out our evening, we thank the wonderful words now of Christopher O'Brien and another angle, and as I said, his Auntie Di's grandma shared her message, and we received another message from another person, which I'll just share in really just 20 words or so. It was the most unexpected and pleasant link-up. We've had here descendants from Gillison, from Jesse. We've had from Amy, of course, Uncle Boydie, and Sally, many people from Auntie Sally's family here. And, of course, sadly, there are no descendants from Daniel. He gave his life in Belgium when he was 21 years old. And there were two older children as well, from Uncle William's first wife, and Auntie Annie Murray, Emma and Bartlett. Bartlett died as a child, and Emma had some children that we believe the line didn't go beyond that we may find differently. But there is one more link. Uncle Boydie's grandparents had a child as well, I mentioned him earlier, called Lynch. And Lynch was probably most well known as the fastest man in the world. In 1928 and 1929, he was the Usain Bolt. He ran the Store Gift and the Sprint Championships, and he continued to have children. He had a child called John Cooper, and he had a daughter who passed away a few years ago now, but has left a widower, Judith, and left a widower called Ian, who lives in Wangaratta in Victoria. And Ian and his children and grandchildren from the line of Lynch Cooper very, very much wanted to be here this evening. They live in Victoria, not that far. But way before this function was organised, they decided to have a family holiday honouring the family, something clearly appropriate, and they booked to be in Queensland for the week from last Sunday to this coming Sunday. But they wanted their blessings and messages and support shared to you all, and they hope to connect with the family. So that will in fact close up the circle, and his brother-in-law, John Cooper, also carrying the surname, lives around the Brisbane area, and asked me today on the telephone to send his very best regards to all of you from himself, his daughters, two daughters, and two grandchildren, Bailey and Zach. So you have now had a full circle, and you would have all noticed as you walked in that Kate Brocker, who was organising tonight's event, can I just take a moment for Kate Brocker, who put this function together. Together with her first cousin, who's actually congratulating her right now, David Jago, were in many senses, together with Mike Zergos from Courage to Care, who's in the back of the room, were the instigators of tonight's event, and Richmond Football Club were very, very supportive, and we've had this evening complete as it was. But David, Kate's cousin from